Reed Hastings sat in the conference room at Blockbuster's headquarters in Dallas, Texas. His palms were sweating. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Across the table sat John Antioco, the CEO of Blockbuster, and a room full of executives who looked at Reed like he was insane. Reed had just made his pitch. He wanted Blockbuster to buy Netflix for $50 million. $50 million. That was the number. Reed thought it was fair. His company was drowning in debt. They were losing money every single month. The dot-com bubble had just burst, and investors were pulling out of tech companies left and right. But Reed believed in his idea. He believed people would eventually want to rent movies by mail instead of driving to a store. He believed the future was coming, and Blockbuster could own it if they just said yes. John Antioco leaned back in his chair. He looked at the other executives. Then he did something Reed would never forget. He laughed, not a polite chuckle, a full mocking laugh. The other executives joined in. They laughed at Reed Hastings like he was a comedian who just told a bad joke. One executive shook his head and said the idea of mailing DVDs would never replace the experience of walking into a Blockbuster store on a Friday night. Another executive said Netflix was a niche business that would never scale. John Antioco told Reed that Blockbuster had 9,000 stores and 60,000 employees. They were making $6 billion a year. Why would they waste $50 million on a dying mail-order business? Reed left that meeting humiliated. He walked out of the building into the scorching Dallas heat, got into his rental car, and sat there for a long time. He felt like a failure. He felt like an idiot. He had just been laughed out of the room by the biggest video rental company in the world. But here is what most people do not know about that moment. Reed did not cry. He did not call his investors and tell them it was over. He did not go home and quit. Instead, something ignited inside him. Something dark and powerful. He decided right there in that parking lot that he was going to make Blockbuster regret laughing at him. Reed flew back to California and gathered his team. He told them what happened. He told them Blockbuster laughed. He told them they were on their own. No one was coming to save them. No big company was going to buy them out. They had two choices: shut down Netflix or fight like their lives depended on it. His team chose to fight, but fighting was not going to be easy. Netflix was hemorrhaging cash. In 2000, they had 300,000 subscribers. That sounds like a lot, but it was not enough. The business model was broken. They were spending more money on postage and DVDs than they were making from subscriptions. Reed knew they needed to change something, or they would be dead within a year. Reed made a decision that seemed insane at the time. He decided to stop charging late fees. See, Netflix originally worked like this. You rented a DVD, you kept it for a week, and if you did not return it on time, you paid a late fee. But Reed hated late fees. In fact, the whole reason he started Netflix was because Blockbuster charged him $40 in late fees for returning Apollo 13 6 weeks late. So Reed decided to try something radical. He launched a subscription model: pay one flat monthly fee, rent as many DVDs as you want, keep them as long as you want, no late fees, no due dates. You mail one back, they send you the next one on your list. Simple, revolutionary, and incredibly risky. Wall Street analysts said it would never work. They said people would abuse the system. They said Netflix would go bankrupt within 6 months. Investors started pulling their money out. Reed watched his company's valuation drop from hundreds of millions to almost nothing. But something unexpected happened. People loved it. They loved the freedom. They loved not worrying about late fees. They loved getting movies in the mail in those iconic red envelopes. Word of mouth spread. Subscribers started growing. Not fast, but steadily. By 2002, Netflix had reached 1 million subscribers. Blockbuster was still laughing. They were making billions. They had total control of the market. They did not see Netflix as a threat. They saw them as a cute little mail-order company that would eventually fade away. But Reed saw something Blockbuster did not see. He saw the future. He knew the internet was getting faster. He knew technology was improving. He knew that one day, people would not want to rent DVDs at all. They would want to stream movies directly to their homes. And when that day came, Reed wanted Netflix to be ready. In 2007, Reed made another decision that shocked everyone. He announced that Netflix was going to start streaming movies online. Not in 5 years, not in 3 years. Now most of his board members thought he was crazy. They said the technology was not ready. They said internet speeds were too slow. They said people would never watch full-length movies on their computers. Reed did not care. He knew if Netflix did not evolve, they would die. So he invested millions of dollars into building a streaming platform. It was clunky at first. The selection was terrible. You could only watch a few hundred titles, mostly old movies and documentaries nobody wanted to see. But it was a start. Meanwhile, Blockbuster was starting to feel the pressure. Their revenue was dropping. People were tired of late fees. They were tired of driving to the store only to find out the movie they wanted was already rented. Blockbuster finally realized Netflix was a real threat. In 2004, Blockbuster launched Blockbuster Online, their own DVD by mail service. They tried to copy Netflix. They offered no late fees. They used their stores as an advantage, letting customers return DVDs in person. For a moment, it looked like Blockbuster might crush Netflix. But they were too late. Netflix had already built customer loyalty. They had perfected their distribution system. They had algorithms that recommended movies based on what you liked. Blockbuster was trying to catch up to a company that was already 10 steps ahead. By 2010, Blockbuster was in serious trouble. They were billions of dollars in debt. Thousands of stores were closing. In September 2010, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. The company that laughed at Reed Hastings in 2000 was now begging for survival. Reed did not gloat. He did not trash-talk Blockbuster in the media. He just kept building Netflix. He kept improving the streaming service. He kept adding more content. He kept listening to what customers wanted. In 2013, Netflix did something no one thought was possible. They produced their own original show, House of Cards, starring Kevin Spacey. It was a massive gamble. Netflix spent $100 million on 2 seasons before a single episode aired. Traditional media companies said it would fail. They said Netflix was a tech company, not a content creator. They said viewers would never pay to watch shows made by a streaming service. House of Cards became a global phenomenon. It won awards. It brought in millions of new subscribers. It proved that Netflix was not just a delivery system for other people's content. They were now a content powerhouse. Reed kept pushing. He greenlit more original shows. Orange is the New Black, Stranger Things, The Crown, Narcos, Black Mirror. Each one brought in more subscribers. Each one proved that Netflix understood what audiences wanted better than traditional Hollywood studios. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. Would you have kept going if you were Reed Hastings? Imagine this. You walk into a room and pitch your dream to the biggest company in your industry, and they laugh in your face. They humiliate you. They tell you your idea is worthless. Would you have walked away? Would you have given up and taken a safe job somewhere else? Or would you have fought back? Drop a comment and let me know, because what Reed did next changed everything. By 2015, Netflix was spending billions of dollars on content. They were producing original movies and series in dozens of countries. They were expanding globally. They were available in nearly every country on Earth. Traditional media companies were panicking. Disney, HBO, NBC, they all saw Netflix as an existential threat. In 2016, Netflix reached 100 million subscribers worldwide. 100 million people paying every month to watch Netflix content. Reed Hastings had built something that nobody thought was possible. A company that Blockbuster could have bought for $50 million in 2000 was now worth tens of billions of dollars. But the competition was heating up. Disney launched Disney+. Apple launched Apple TV+. Amazon was pouring billions into Prime Video. HBO Max entered the game. Everyone wanted a piece of the streaming market that Netflix had created. Wall Street started doubting Netflix again. They said there was too much competition. They said Netflix would lose subscribers. They said the company's best days were behind them. Some analysts predicted Netflix would collapse under the weight of content costs and rising competition. Reed refused to panic. He had been here before. He had faced doubt before. He had been laughed at, dismissed, and written off. And every single time, he proved the doubters wrong. Netflix kept investing in content. They did not just throw money at random projects. They used data. They studied what people watched. They knew exactly what kinds of stories resonated with audiences in different countries. They created shows in Korean, Spanish, French, German. They made Netflix a truly global platform, not just an American company that happened to work overseas. In 2021, Squid Game became the biggest show in Netflix history. A South Korean survival drama that nobody in Hollywood would have greenlit became a global sensation. It was watched by over 140 million households. It proved that great storytelling transcends language and borders. Reed transitioned away from day-to-day operations in January 2023, stepping down from his role as co-CEO. He moved into the position of executive chairman, guiding the company's strategic direction from the board. Then, in April 2025, he transitioned to chairman of the board, solidifying his legacy while allowing new leadership to drive Netflix forward. His vision, however, remained embedded in every decision the company made. By 2026, Netflix is worth over $380 billion. Let that number sink in for a moment. $380 billion. The company has more than 300 million paid subscribers in over 190 countries. They are streaming content in more than 30 languages. They are producing thousands of hours of original programming every single year. Let that sink in for a moment. $380 billion. The company that Blockbuster refused to buy for $50 million is now worth 7,600 times more than what Reed was asking for. If Blockbuster had said yes in that meeting in 2000, they would own the most valuable entertainment company in the world right now. Instead, Blockbuster is dead, completely gone. There is one Blockbuster store left on Earth, in Bend, Oregon, and it exists purely as a nostalgic curiosity. But this story is not just about business. It is not just about money. It is about something deeper. It is about what happens when you refuse to quit. It is about what happens when you take rejection and turn it into fuel. It is about what happens when everyone tells you that you are wrong, and you decide to prove them wrong anyway. Reed Hastings could have quit 100 times. He could have shut down Netflix in 2000 when Blockbuster laughed at him. He could have given up in 2002 when investors were pulling out. He could have played it safe and just stayed a DVD by mail company. He could have avoided the risk of streaming. He could have avoided the risk of producing original content, but Reed understood something most people never learn. Rejection is not the end. Failure is not final. Being laughed at does not mean you are wrong. It just means you are ahead of your time. Think about the people who doubted Reed. The Blockbuster executives who laughed at him are not running successful companies today. Most of them are retired or forgotten. John Antioco, the CEO who rejected Netflix, was fired from Blockbuster in 2007, 3 years before the company went bankrupt. Where are they now? Nobody remembers their names, but everyone remembers Reed Hastings. Here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. The people who laugh at you today will be irrelevant tomorrow. The people who doubt you will fade into obscurity. The people who tell you your dream is impossible will watch you succeed from the sidelines, but only if you refuse to quit. Only if you keep going when everything inside you is screaming to stop. Reed faced obstacles that would have destroyed most entrepreneurs. He faced technological challenges. He faced financial crises. He faced competitors with billions of dollars and decades of experience. He faced criticism from media analysts who said streaming would never work. He faced skepticism from Hollywood insiders who said Netflix could never produce quality content. And every single time, Reed adapted, he learned, he evolved. He made hard decisions. He took risks that terrified his investors. He bet the entire company on ideas that most people thought were insane. When Netflix transitioned from DVDs to streaming, they lost millions of subscribers. People were angry. They did not understand why Netflix was changing. Wall Street punished the company. The stock price crashed. Reed was under immense pressure to reverse course, but he did not. He knew streaming was the future, and he was willing to suffer short-term pain for long-term gain. That is what separates winners from losers. Winners are willing to endure pain today for success tomorrow. Losers want comfort now, even if it means failure later. Reed chose pain. He chose risk. He chose the hard path, and that made all the difference. By 2026, Netflix is not just surviving, they are dominating. They produce over 15,000 hours of original content every year. They employ thousands of writers, directors, actors, and crew members around the world. They have fundamentally changed how people consume entertainment. They killed the video rental industry. They disrupted cable television. They forced every major media company to rethink their entire business model. And it all started with a man who refused to quit after being laughed at. There is a lesson here for anyone who has ever been rejected. For anyone who has ever pitched an idea and been told it would never work. For anyone who has ever walked out of a meeting feeling humiliated and worthless. That moment does not define you. What you do after that moment defines you. Reed Hastings could have let that Blockbuster meeting destroy him. He could have internalized the laughter and believed he was not good enough. He could have played it safe and taken a corporate job. He could have sold Netflix for pennies and walked away, but he did not. He turned rejection into motivation. He turned doubt into determination. He turned laughter into legacy. Today, when business schools teach entrepreneurship, they teach the Netflix story. They teach how Reed Hastings saw the future when everyone else was blind. They teach how he adapted when the world changed. They teach how he refused to quit when quitting was the logical choice. But here's what they often miss. Reed was not a superhuman. He was not smarter than everyone else. He did not have some secret advantage. He was just a guy with an idea and the stubbornness to see it through. He made mistakes. He had failures. He had moments of doubt, but he kept going. And that is the only thing that matters. Success is not about being perfect. It is not about never failing. It is about refusing to stay down when you get knocked down. It is about getting up one more time than you fall. It is about believing in your vision even when nobody else does. Reed Hastings built Netflix on one simple principle. Give people what they want, when they want it, how they want it. No late fees. No driving to a store. No waiting for your favorite show to air on television. Just pure, instant access to entertainment. That idea seems obvious now, but in 2000, it was revolutionary. And the people who should have seen it coming, the experts, the executives, the industry leaders, they all missed it. That is the irony of innovation. The people closest to an industry are often the least able to see how it will change. They are too invested in the old way of doing things. They have too much to lose. They cannot imagine a world where their business model becomes obsolete, so they laugh at the outsiders. They dismiss the dreamers. They protect the status quo until it crumbles beneath them. Blockbuster had every advantage. They had the stores, they had the customers, they had the brand, they had the money. They could have bought Netflix and owned the future, but they were too arrogant to see it. They thought their empire was unshakable. They thought people would always want to drive to a store and rent a physical disc. They were wrong. And their arrogance cost them everything. Netflix proved that the future belongs to those who embrace change, not those who resist it. The future belongs to those who take risks, not those who play it safe. The future belongs to those who refuse to quit, even when the world is laughing at them. So what about you? What idea are you sitting on right now because you are afraid people will laugh? What dream have you given up on because someone told you it would never work? What business are you not starting because the experts say it is impossible? Reed Hastings teaches us that the experts are often wrong. The critics are often blind. The people who laugh at you today will be begging to work with you tomorrow. But only if you refuse to quit. Only if you keep pushing forward when everyone else would walk away. This is not just a story about Netflix. This is a story about resilience. This is a story about vision. This is a story about what happens when you bet on yourself, even when nobody else will. Netflix went from a laughingstock in a Dallas boardroom to a $380 billion empire. From 300,000 subscribers struggling to survive to over 300 million people around the world choosing Netflix every single day. From a rejected acquisition offer to the company that destroyed the very industry that rejected it. That transformation did not happen by accident. It happened because one man refused to let rejection define him. It happened because Reed Hastings chose to fight when everyone told him to surrender. It happened because he believed in his vision more than he believed in their doubt. If this story inspired you, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications so you never miss another story like this. And share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who is facing rejection right now. Someone who is thinking about quitting. Someone who needs to be reminded that the people who laugh at you today will be forgotten tomorrow, but your legacy will last forever. Thanks for watching. Now go build something the world will never forget.